We've been a leader in banking for more than 100 years. You'll find us here, at home, on your phone, and everywhere you go. Renaissance Bank. Understanding you. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
Sponsored by Renaissance Bank.
Good morning, Northeast Mississippi, and welcome to Daily Journal Newsbreak for Thursday, December 21st. I'm your host, Chris Kiefer, and we're going to take a look at the top news and sports stories from Northeast Mississippi. But first, let's start with your weather forecast. Today we're looking at partly cloudy skies with a high of 64 and a low of 54. It's a 10% chance of rain. Your long-term outlook calls for a lot more rain. Friday there's an 80% chance of rain, high of 71 and a low of 54. Saturday, that chance of rain is up to 100%. The high is 57 and the low is 38. Sunday, partly cloudy skies, but much cooler, high of 50, low of 25. Let's take a look now at today's top headlines. Tupelo's Convention and Visitors Bureau has hired the services of an outside publicity and marketing firm. On Tuesday, the Tupelo City Council authorized a contract between CVB and Turner Public Relations. Under it, CVB will pay Turner a total of $5,900 a month through the end of next September. The total cost will be about $50,000. CVB Director Neil McCoy said the agency will give Tupelo broader national exposure to travel and media writers. The money for the contract will come from CVB's budget. The Bureau receives revenue from a 2% tourism tax on restaurants and hotels. That tax earned it $4.3 million in the 2016-17 fiscal year. Meanwhile, CVB remains in the midst of an overhaul of its main lobby. New and expanded exhibits on Tupelo history will debut early next year. Governor Phil Bryant named an interim Medicaid executive director on Wednesday. Drew Snyder has been serving as Bryant's deputy chief of staff and policy director. He will assume the post vacated last week with the resignation of David Jellick. Jellick had served as Bryant's Medicaid executive director throughout his gubernatorial tenure, which began in January 2012. It's not clear whether Snyder might remain in the post for the remainder of Bryant's tenure that ends in January 2020. Snyder will guide the agency as the 2018 legislative session begins. Medicaid is expected to be one of the primary focuses of that session. The Division of Medicaid will have to be reauthorized in 2018. Legislators customarily consider major changes to the complex agency when they address the reauthorization bill. House Medicaid Committee Chairman Chris Brown said the goal will be a reduction in costs and better health outcomes for the approximately 710,000 Medicaid recipients. The Tupelo City Council agreed on Tuesday to set aside money for the Lynx Center. The $12,500 in funding will be used as matching funds if the nonprofit organization wins a competitive grant next year from the Mississippi Arts Commission. The state's Arts Commission is currently inviting applicants to compete for the last remaining money of a building grant program in place since 2001. The Lynx Center has received funds from the program in the past. If it is successful again, it plans to use the money to convert an unused space in its building into an expanded lobby and gallery area. To apply for the grant, the Lynx Center needs to secure $25,000 in local matching money in advance. The city has now agreed to supply half of that money. Lynx Center leaders believe the other half can be raised through private donors. And in sports, the Mississippi State and Ole Miss football programs welcomed a new group of players during the early National Signing Day on Wednesday. Mississippi State's class reflected the offensive background of new head coach Joe Moorhead. 9 of the Bulldogs' 15 early signees were on the offensive side of the ball. That includes 4-star wide receivers Stephen Guidry, Malik Heath, and Devonta Whoop Jason. The Bulldogs also signed 3 tight ends, as well as 2016 Mr. Football from Alabama and 3-star running back LaDamian Webb. Moorhead said the Bulldogs have 4 or 5 more spots available in the 2018 class. Meanwhile, Ole Miss also announced 15 signees. That group included quarterback Matt Corral, wide receiver Elijah Moore, and defensive end James Williams. All 3 were committed to other schools at one time in the process. Williams was a signing day surprise as the Jackson native flipped from Mississippi State. He is the 4th ranked player in Mississippi by Rivals.com and the 6th ranked player by 247sports.com. Based on NCAA penalties, Ole Miss can sign only 22 recruits. As he juggles numbers, Coach Matt Luke believes he will be able to sign 8 or 9 players in the late signing period. That does it for Newsbreak on this Thursday. Don't forget that this show is just one of the many online offerings courtesy of the Daily Journal that gets you news off the page and on the go. Check out the Memo podcast for the latest on news and entertainment in Northeast Mississippi. On Wednesday's episode, we talked with Dennis Sid about proposed regulations for Tupelo's food trucks. We also discussed possible renovations to the Lee County Library, Tab Boren Pottery of Mantachie, and the debate over the state Medicaid program. Listen to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or memo.djournal.com. And Ole Miss and Mississippi State fans, listen to the Double Coverage podcast for the latest on the Rebels and Bulldogs with beat reporters Parrish Alford and Logan Lowry. Look for a new episode this afternoon on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or at doublecoverage.djournal.com. Remember, each story discussed on Newsbreak can be found in your daily journal or online at djournal.com, where you can also find a new episode of Newsbreak each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Kiefer. Have a great Thursday.